These are the categories of traditional healers that Michael and I studied while we were in Belize. The doctor priest or priestess is the Jimen. That was Don Eligio, and one other woman down south amongst the Garifuna population, Miss Sarah, who has also recently passed away. The village healer is the person who works directly under the doctor priest, and that is the granny or grandfather, grandmother, who has so much experience treating. In this environment and culture, people have as many as 80 or 90 grandchildren. It's not unusual at all. So after you've taken care of 15 of your own children, all of your grandchildren, you have so much experience, you become the village healer, the person that most people refer to if there is no Jimen. And then the granny healer is the person in the household, an auntie, it could be an uncle, a grandparent, and we know Miss Juanishish in San Ignacio area, 15 children and 90 grandchildren and about 180 great-grandchildren. She is the primary healthcare provider for that entire progeny. The midwife, of course, is the specialist. Miss Hortense Robinson was our very dear friend, a herbal midwife who looks after women prenatally, during labor and delivery, postnatal, and then also takes care of the babies and the children. So she's the obstetrician and the pediatrician. The massage therapist, a very, very important function in this society. Usually they take care of backache, neckache, headache, and uterine problems and digestive problems, which is where our Maya abdominal therapy comes in. There are several practitioners right here. Would you mind standing up? Those who have taken the Maya abdominal therapy training, doing wonderful work out there right here in New York City. The bone setter is the person who looks after sprains, breaks, and fractures. They are hands-on, and they also do plasters of different plants to speed the healing. Snake doctor, as they describe it, bites, stings, and scorpions, rats, bats, and snakes. And dogs, right. And the bushmaster is a very useful profession. He usually is a guy who is the person who collects for women healers, for the grannies who can no longer go into the bush to bring down vines and roots and barks. So the bushmaster is a person who knows the remedies, knows how to collect them, what they're for, but usually does not have the patience to deal with patients. That's why they call them patients.
So these are some of the people we worked with. This is Hortense Robinson, as Rose just said, a midwife and much more. Most remarkable person.
Miss Hortense only passed away in 2010 at the age of 84, going on 85. Hortense Robinson was born in Cozumel Island in Mexico during the days of the Chicle camps, when men went to different parts of the jungle to collect the resin of the zapadilla tree to make chewing gum for the world. Both of her grandmothers were midwives, and she was their apprentice. She did all of the collecting of the medicinal plants for her grandmothers in Cozumel Island. She delivered the first baby on her own at the age of 13. She adopted her first unwanted baby at the age of 15 that she delivered. And she eventually adopted 18 children and had 8 of her own. So she turned out to be a mother, in most of the years of her life, a single mother of 26 children. Miss Beatrice Waite. Mm-hmm. Oh, good. And this is Andrew Ramcharan of East Indian descent. His father came from New Delhi, from India, and settled in Belize, one of the indentured slaves, if you will, people who got into debt in India or stole an apple somewhere or a loaf of bread and were sent to the British colony to populate. So that's how his family got there. And his father was a snake doctor in India. and then taught his son, and that became his son's profession. It's a very important aspect of these traditional healers' lives that they were given a profession through traditional healing and traditional medicine. So Mr. Ramcharan, a very, very famous person in his district because he saved so many lives after hospitals had given up on them.
And Greg reminded me of a story last night. I don't like poisonous snakes much. So on one of these 52 trips, I bought these snake boots that were Kevlar bulletproof up to your knees. And I took them out of the truck, and it took me 20 minutes to lace them up.
In the heat.
In the heat.
In the
It was
heat.
about 110 degrees. And we were with Mr. Ramcharan, and we go into the forest, and I take 10 steps, and he goes, look, and there was a deadly eyelash viper right going at my neck level, right? Bright yellow, green eyelash viper. And I thought, boots aren't going to do any good. I walked back to the truck. Took me 10 minutes to unlace these $200 boots. I threw them in the back of the truck. I put my sneakers on because you can run faster with sneakers. And those boots never saw the light of day again.
Miss Beatrice Wade was a granny healer, a spiritual healer, and a midwife. She was the mother of 9 children. She also has passed away. And she lived in the village of Santa Familia. And she was a very, very strong, very knowledgeable village healer. This is Percival Hezekiah Reynolds, Triple Moon Herbs. He called himself a scientific herbalist because he could read. So he had lots and lots of books on herbal remedies, and he was a very well visited. There was usually a line outside his little wooden house there on the highway on the way to San Ignacio.
And a story with Mr. Percy, his nickname was Sledge, right? I remember that.
He had been a plumber.
Right. And he said to me, I read this book about this magical herb that you people have up there in the United States. I'd like you to bring me some. It's called dandelion. I'd like to plant it everywhere in Belize. And I said, I can't do that.
And our dear, dear friend, Don Tomas Green. Thomas Green was a famous Belizean because he was one of the greatest dory makers, which means he would take a live, living tree, knock it down, and after weeks, sometimes months, really months of labor by hand, do a dugout canoe. And he was taken to the World's Fair in New Orleans in the 1980s, and they shipped a tree, a whole trunk of a tree, floating it alongside a ship from Belize City all the way to New Orleans, plopped him down in the Caribbean exhibit, and he dug out that canoe at the World's Fair. And
that's
Greg and I bought that canoe.
Yeah, and that's Greg and
myself,
yeah.
Don Tomas, and I think that's Rolando or Pablo Cocom, and there are our collection bags collecting along the riverside. And this is Aunt Barbara Fernandez, another very famous market herbalist in Belize City. And this is one of the benefits of the project that we did in Belize, is that we were able to hold 6 different traditional healers conferences in Belize, something that had never ever been done before. And we invited all other traditional healers to come, and our theme was, if you know, come and teach. If you've always wanted to know, come to learn. So Miss Barbara was very kind. She put this human being together with different parts of plants based on their function in the body. So here you have lemongrass for the lungs, there's rue for the brain, and these different parts, different plants for circulation. So Aunt Barbara only passed away last year. Very famous person, always worked in the Belize City market dispensing herbs. And Antonio Cook was Don Eligio's best friend. There he is in Don Eligio's hut, And you see the simplicity of Don Eligio's house, just a stick and thatch hut. And Antonio was a bushmaster. His wife was the village healer in Don Eligio's village of San Antonio, and he liked to pass time with Don Eligio, just chatting and reminiscing about the old days, 80 or 90 years ago, and help him chop medicine. So Antonio the bushmaster. And Polo Romero, a bushmaster and snake doctor. Polo is one who had very little patience for taking care of people, but he loved to make his living collecting medicine for others who took care of people. But he is a good snake doctor. He's one of the few who is still living in our very own Cayo district.
And by the way, in the book, there's a whole section called In Their Own Words, and we interviewed maybe 10 people, these people, and they just spoke about whatever they wanted to speak about, their history, what it was like to grow up 60 years ago, what it was like to live in a Chicle camp. So it was very interesting, and instead of trying to synthesize that, we just made that a whole chapter.
Like many of these healers, they represent the cultural heritage of Belize. Polo Romero is a combination of Maya, East Indian, and African, as was Miss Hortense as well. Miss Hortense had a Scottish grandfather, an American Indian grandfather, an East Indian grandmother, and a Maya grandmother, and all these cultures come together, and they learned all of the plants and healing systems of those cultures from their grandparents.
And then one of the ways we would just learn is by passing people on rainforest trails. So this man is Ariel Carreras, as I remember, and he was walking down a trail one day eating this leaf. I said, "Oh, can I take your picture?" And I said, "What's the leaf for?" He said, "Oh, bad stomach. I ate something bad last night." And this was allspice leaf. You know about the fruit, but the leaf happens to be therapeutic too. So just common generalist knowledge. No secrets, no family knowledge that shouldn't be let out of the family. It was all very common knowledge that the people did not want to disappear.